Bar for bar album reviews. Felt. Felt for You. Felt for You is the fourth album from the rap duo Felt. This duo is comprised of Slug from Atmosphere and Murs. It's been 11 years since the last time we got an album from Felt. We got Felt 1, a tribute to Christina Ricci back in 2002, Felt 2, a tribute to Lisa Bonet in 2005, and then Felt 3, a tribute to Rosie Perez in 2009. Each Felt album has been fully produced by a different producer each time, the first being produced by the Grouch, the second by Ant, who is also the producer for Atmosphere, and the third by Aesop Rock. This time around, we return with Ant's production, which really fits both Slug and Murs' rap styles pretty well. I don't think I have to tell y'all about Slug and Murs' accolades and their history, but just know that they're two of the most consistent MCs in the independent rap scene. This album comes in at a total runtime of 40 minutes with 12 tracks, which is right in that sweet spot for me in terms of length. Relax. This album kicks off with the track Never's Enough, and I feel like this track does a good job of setting the tone and energy for the rest of the album. This song talks about how no matter how much you have, it's never enough. And this is mostly seen on the chorus where Murs says, leveling up, but it's never enough. This could mean no matter how much you've achieved, it's still never enough, at least for them. And that part of the chorus can also be directly related to video games, where you always want to level up or get to the highest level, or like you always have that goal of leveling up, essentially. And it could also just be like the never enough part, where even when you level up, you're like, damn, I want to get to the next one. Or like once you've reached the maximum level you can, you're just kind of stuck there like, well, don't know what to do now. It could also be seen as some people like myself, when you get towards the end of a game, you're like, I don't want this to end, because once I finish it, there's nothing left. Like, I want more, I want this game to continue. Like, it's just not enough. Murs' verse comes first, bars, where we see him talking about how the game will break your heart and it will make you laugh. The game that he's talking about here is the rap game, although these thoughts can be related to pretty much any career that you pursue. There's always highs and lows, but because of the passion that he mentions, he continues on pushing. This passion leads him to saying how he's also doing this for his city and for his kids. Slug's verse carries on the idea of it never being enough, but in a slightly different way. For him, it sounds like never enough, maybe more monetary, because at the end of his verse he says, and ain't neither of us fixed so we having these kids. That's why I gotta keep some work. Got me standing on the corner trying to sling these shirts. For a lot of people, when you're expecting kids, you kind of kick into overdrive because kids are expensive and you need to make the money. So it makes sense that you'd want to do anything to get more money, which in Slug's case includes selling shirts on the corner. He could also just very well be speaking in general instead of himself, because he does that pretty often, I think. The next track, Find My Way, is a track where the two are talking about finding their way through life. Murs starts off talking about where he is currently / where he's going in the next few years and how he got there. I only say the future because he says Cadillac when I'm 45, but he's like 42 right now. So he also mentions that sacrifice is key, but don't make it harder than it has to be. Basically saying that sacrifices have to be made sometimes to get where you want to be, but it shouldn't be hard. That you should be willing to make changes and sacrifices that make sense and that are typically easier to make. And once you have that sort of thought process, like the sacrifices that you have to make become easier. I also like this because it reminds you that you don't have to give up everything, including things you enjoy, like your hobbies and stuff, just to reach your goals. Slug's verse comes in at a slightly different angle. He talks about how he puts family first and will do anything for them. He also mentions how he got random skills to pay handsome bills, and that he's only here to hear the crowd get lively. Your support gets me over my anxiety. Social insecurity, open up your irony. He's kind of saying that he's got these skills to pay for everything that's needed to be paid, like for him and for his family. And my interpretation of that is that he's saying that his rapping skill is random, which leads to crowds of fans that support him. That support helps him get over his anxiety, which, based on the song, could also be just being able to support his family. This brings us to the next song, Don't Do Me Like That. This track is pretty straightforward with its content. We have both Slug and Murs talking about arguments that they've had with their significant others, where the two of them are saying, yo, don't do me like that. Slug's verse is a little bit more vague in terms of the specifics of the argument. It just kind of seems like the arguments that they've had in general. But Murs' verse is more specific, and it talks about him being accused of cheating. Now we have the track Trees, which I guess is their weed song. I do enjoy this though, because it has Murs and Slug pretty much swapping bars, which is always just a fun thing to do, especially on a collaborative album. It's also just a really fun song and kind of has them both reminiscing a little bit. The track Through the Night takes us through a night in their younger days and how they used to use the night to cope and get on to the next day. I don't really have much to say here, except I don't know that I needed a verbal cue for Murs' orgasm. Anyways, next we have the track Freeze Tag. This track's fun. Slug and Murs trade verses again, and each of their verses start with stop, hold it, freeze, which almost takes the place of the chorus. And because there is no chorus, like that kind of is the chorus. I really do want to point out Murs' first entire verse though, where he says, until Obama came back like Jesus, I'm gonna do my very best to lead us. Got a pocket full of Norman Reedus, cause these zombies might try and eat us. And they must be brain dead and drunk on their pain meds to think that true love don't come in the same sex. Suplex them on the neck and be done with it. I'm politicking, but I'm trying to have fun with it. So first, the Norman Reedus line is in reference to The Walking Dead, a zombie show in which Norman Reedus plays Daryl Dixon. Then he compares the people who don't believe in same-sex marriage and LGBTQ rights to those zombies because they're brain dead. Moving on, Sticks and Stones is a track where they talk about violence, really. So Murs starts off talking about how as he got older, his weapon got upgraded. By the end of that verse, we see that this is a bit of a double entendre, where he alludes to his weapon being his dick with the line, I remember my first date and my first beef. On both occasions I was shooting blanks. Never caught a baby or a body, don't know who to thank. Slug's verse takes us through the life of a typical all-American youth, where you start off watching Saturday cartoons and kung fu flicks on Sundays, and then go into football, and eventually to the army? Basically, like, people just based on the American ideals, I guess, sometimes get programmed into thinking that they have to join some sort of army or some sort of gang to kill the bad men. He ends the verse taking us through the various tools of war as time went by as well, starting with stones and arrows, and then finally ending with controllers and drones. Alexander for Real really just feels like it could be the outro to this album, only because it has similarities to the first track on the album. I really do like the production on this track, and it feels a bit more boom bap, especially at the beginning and the end, where it just has Murs saying, but the difference is when we drop records they felt. And I only say this because it sounds like it has this effect on it that makes it sound like a sample that you would hear on like a DJ Premier track. Like, I really like how it sounds. The other reason I feel like this is an outro though is that it feels kind of like a victory lap. They've sustained themselves in the rap game for 20 plus years, and the reason that for that is that they make music that people feel and connect to. The song Hologram is actually really cool because it features guest verses from the Grouch and Aesop Rock, who are the other two producers for Felt. It's like this track is like a family reunion or something. It's pretty cool. The beat on the track is a bit different than the others that we've heard thus far, but it fits the Grouch and especially Aesop Rock really well. Each verse has varying degrees of subtlety, I feel, when it's speaking about the state of America. but I think Murs is probably the most forward with it by saying, "Detain the black, deport the brown until we dethrone the orange face ass clown." I also just like Murs' first line where he says, "Still reading Image comic books until I'm skybound." So, for those of you who aren't complete nerds like me, Image Comics is a comic brand or label like Marvel or DC. And they're probably most popular for series like Saga, The Walking Dead, Deadly Class, and way more. The creator of The Walking Dead also went on to found Skybound Entertainment, which is basically a subsidiary of Image Comics. So he kind of has that wordplay in there. And as far as Aesop Rock's verse, I feel like I could make an entire video just breaking Ace's verse down alone just because it's so dense. Like, I'm not even going to try to get to it right now. The Grouch's verse was very solid as well, and I really like the first line where he called Slug a living legend because of what he's accomplished, but also because he's worked with the living legends a bunch. The second to last track, Crimson Skies, has Felt talking about loss and the ways that they try to cope. Slug starts off the track with, and I wasn't going to mention it, but the way your face sits in front of the sunset, a cinematic silhouette. Give me life, make me feel right, and for a minute I forget about the fires on the hillside. This can be seen as him literally sitting down with somebody, watching a sunset. And this person's obviously someone that he cares about because he's really taking in the image of their silhouette. And then while he's sitting here enjoying the time with someone he cares about in the sunset, all the bad things in his life start to fade away. That only lasts for a moment though, because by the end of his verse, he comes to this line, "I've lost too many friends, and I think I depend on that belief that someday I'll get to see them again." Murs has a similar verse where he's talking about how one of his homies took to the street life and how it sounds like his mother just knew that one day he would die because of the streets. Murs mentioned how he hopped into the car with him, and it already sounds like there was a bit of tension beforehand, probably due to how Murs felt about his friend's actions. And then it all ends. The last song in this album, Barboletta, is named after an eyelash extender. I think the reason behind that could be from the idea that you can make a wish on an eyelash, which makes sense because this track is talking about trying to make some sort of change happen in the world. And if you're on this channel, I'm sure you're well aware of all the bullshit that's happening out there, which needs attention to be undone. Using Barboletta for your eyelashes to then make wishes is almost like creating your own luck, or it can be seen as a tool to help push things forward and help, fix things in the world. This album was a welcome surprise. Like I mentioned at the top, it's been a long time since we've gotten a Felt project, and I feel like I got exactly what I wanted out of it. There were no points at which I felt the project really fell into a lull and lost my attention. And really did a good job here with the great variety of production while also keeping it fairly consistent. Another thing, like when I did the breakdown for their Name in Your Mouth track that dropped last week, I honestly was not expecting a Felt 4 album anytime soon, because I thought that was like a teaser, and then maybe in a few months or maybe by the end of the year we get a Felt album, like at the earliest. I wasn't expecting it to drop like 4 days later. So I was blown away. Like, they tricked us. They got me. Anyways, my favorite tracks on this album are Alexander for Real, Hologram, Trees, Crimson Skies, Freeze Tag, and Sticks and Stones. I don't have much else to add, other than I hope that we don't have to wait even longer for another Felt project. I think someone online was joking and did some calculations where we can expect Felt 5 in like 2035 or something. That about wraps up my review. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album, if you have listened to it. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It's a good album. Also remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this and other content. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.